Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back. We're going to be continuing on with letter 2 in the Christ letters, the truth, Jesus Christ. We stopped in the midst of his official first sermon, of Christ's first sermon. It was just simply too long to read the entire thing in one video. So I am back and I'm going to finish that, and we may move on to another section. We'll see how much we have left of this section to read. How can I help you see this great truth? How can I help you see the reality of the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God? You do not have to look up at the sky, because that is not where you will see the activity of the Father so clearly that it must surely reinforce your faith. This is where people down to the centuries have made the big mistake of turning in towards their dreaming, their imagination, and creating for themselves a Jehovah which does not exist. You will not find the Father someplace in the heavens above you. The Father is in no special place, but everywhere around you and within everything. You can see the Father's marvelous work. Look around you at the growing things, the wheat, the grass, the flowers, the trees and birds, and in every living thing you will see the mysterious and wonderful work of the Father, ceaselessly active. It is here that the Father is perfectly in control. You can see that there is perfect law and order, growth, development, and eventually the harvest to bless both man and beast and birds. Consider the way that a man, after tilling his fields, will scatter seed over the earth and cover it over. He packs up his tools and goes home, content that eventually, if there is sufficient rain, there will be food for him to feed his children. For many days, he sleeps and wakes and does nothing more to his plants. But the growth of stalks and leaves, and later on again, he will see the forming of the seed. And then one day, he will see that the grain is plump and golden and ready to harvest. Meanwhile, all this growth has taken place without any help from him. The wheat has grown in a marvelous way that he cannot explain. Is it magic? No, it is the work of the Father, the power-loving intelligence throughout the universe, which inspires the work and re-spires through it. It is the activity of the Father, which is the intelligent life of the universe. When you enter the kingdom of God, you have a good feeling. You feel happy and joyous. Can you imagine how a woman would feel if she lost a large sum of money and wondered how would she feed her children? The woman of the house would be in tears and would sweep the house so thoroughly that there would not be a speck of dust. Then, hidden in a dark corner, she finds the treasured piece of silver, and immediately her tears are dried. She begins to smile and then feels so alive and so joyous that she rushes out of her house to call to her neighbors to have a celebration party. Where she had thought she had lost everything, she was now rich after all. So is it when you find the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God. Instead of tears and fears and hunger and sickness, you find the peace, joy, plenty, and health of the kingdom of God. You will never experience any kind of lack again. The kingdom of God can also be likened to a very rich man who was a dealer in pearls. All his life he had wanted to find a special pearl which would outshine all others. It would be flawless and perfect, and he would be the envy of every other dealer. One day he found such a pearl, beautiful beyond imagining, perfect beyond all others. He sold everything he owned. He abandoned all that he had accumulated to buy this pearl and was happy beyond all dreaming. What does this mean? It means that all the things he had previously valued in his life, his richly furnished house, his valuables, his way of life, plenty of food and drink, he gladly gave them all up in order to possess the treasure beyond price, the knowledge leading him into the kingdom of God, where happiness is a state of mind which cannot be touched by the outer world with all its cares and worries. The kingdom of God is within you. You enter the kingdom of God when you realize fully that the Father is active at all times within you. It is a state of mind, of perception and understanding, that the reality behind and within all things visible is the Father, and is beautiful and perfect, and that all things which are contrary to beauty, harmony, health, abundance, are the creations of man's wrong thinking. How have I grieved over you who suffer, but you do not need to suffer if you listen to what I have to tell you. But I must warn you that the path leading into the kingdom of heaven is difficult to follow, because it means that first, you have to deal with yourself. Why is it the self you have to deal with? Because out of your desires to protect and to promote your own personal good come all your selfish thoughts, words, and actions. You will probably ask, why should I have to worry about these? If what you say is true, that there is no punishment, that God sees not our evil, then why should we be concerned about the way we behave? There is so much here to be learnt that I hardly know where to begin. As I have explained, you draw your life from the Father. Therefore, you draw your capacity to think and love from the Father. Even as Father intelligence is creative, so is your consciousness creative. With your minds and hearts, you actually form the plans of your own lives and experiences. And what kind of lives do you plan and form in your minds? If someone annoys or hurts you, you retaliate in some way or another. You believe that if your eye is taken, you must expect the adversary's eye in return. You believe that whoever kills should be killed as punishment and compensation. You believe that whoever robs you should pay the price, that whoever steals your wife should be stoned along with your wife. You believe in the extraction of payment for every evil thing that comes your way, since it is human nature to hurt others, and you have been taught to retaliate. Your lives are a continual scene of warfare. Warfare in the home amongst husbands, wives, children, and neighbors, and public figures, and between nations. Your Father knows nothing of this warfare in your lives, but knows the stress in your minds and bodies arising from this warfare, but can do nothing. Nothing to ease your pain until you yourselves stop the warfare. You yourselves must cease your fighting and live in peace with your family, neighbors, employers, public figures, and other countries. Only then can the Father love work take place in your minds, hearts, bodies, and lives. Only then will you be able to recognize and see the love work being done in you and for you by the Father. Remember also the great law: you reap exactly as you sow. You cannot pick figs from brambles, or grapes from thorn trees, or harvest wheat from weeds. Think about this and understand this parable, because it is very important to you, not only today, but also throughout all your days and years to come, even into eternity. So, if you want to change your lives, change your thoughts. Change your words arising from those thoughts. Change your actions arising from the thoughts. What is in your minds will create all your experiences, your sickness, poverty, unhappiness, and despair. A man shouted out to me, "Tell us, teacher, how do we remain peaceful with our neighbors when they themselves will give us no peace?" I said to him, smiling, "When your neighbor comes to you and says he has to travel some distance away and does not want to go alone and asks you to go with him, what do you do?" The man laughed. "If my neighbor wanted to take me away from what I was doing, I would not be pleased. I would tell him to find someone else to go with him, as I was busy." "And how would your neighbor feel?" I asked. The man shrugged. "I don't know." "And next time you needed him to do you a favor, how will he respond to your asking?" The man was no longer laughing. He did not reply. Another man said, "He will swear at him and tell him to go elsewhere for help." I said to the people, "He has answered rightly. And how will he feel?" I pointed to the man who had first spoken, smiling at him. A woman shouted above the laughter, "He will tell everyone he meets what a selfish and miserable neighbor he has. Perhaps he will want to hurt him in some way." There were shouts of agreement, and I nodded. Yes, he will have forgotten that he was once asked by his neighbor to walk 1 or 2 miles with him, and he refused. He will not see the law of reaping and sowing at work in his life. He set it in motion when he refused to go a mile with his neighbor, and now he is reaping of his attitudes and actions. Of what use is it to be angry when he has created the situation all by himself? The people laughed and nodded and spoke to one another. Never before had they heard such knowledge of human behavior. Here was an entirely new teaching. I said to them, I advise you, when your neighbor comes to you asking you to walk a mile with them, or anything else that will make him more at ease and happy, first think about what you would like him to do for you if you also have a need. How would you like him to respond to your request? A murmur swept through the crowd, and I could see that they understood what I was telling them. In fact, if your neighbor asks you to go 1 mile, do it with a happy, easy agreement and be prepared to go on to do 2 miles if necessary. When you refuse people, you do not realize it, but you tighten up your minds and bodies, ready to protect yourself from being forced to do something you do not want to do. You tighten up your minds and bodies, and the Father is tightened up also and cannot do its love work within you. And out of this tightening comes sickness. Again, you may meet someone sorely in need who is cold and unhappy. He may ask you for your coat. Don't pass him by glaring at him. Some people laughed. They knew this is what they would do. No, give him your coat, and if he is really cold, give him your cloak also. Go your way rejoicing. Rejoicing? A disbelieving voice asked. I laughed and said, yes, my friend, rejoicing. Firstly, because you had a coat and a cloak to give, and then rejoicing because you realize that now you have a lack of a coat and cloak yourself. Your Father within you will shortly return the coat and cloak to you in some surprising way. If, however, you give him your coat and cloak and then continue walking, grumbling to yourself, now why did I do that? I was foolish. Now I will be cold instead of him, and people will laugh at me because I have given him my coat and cloak and left myself with nothing. And what will my wife say when I get home? The people were nodding and laughing, enjoying the picture of the man who gives away coat and cloak and then remembers what an evil thing he has done to himself. I knew that very often they did deprive themselves to help others and then regretted their generosity afterwards. I waited a moment and then shouted in a loud voice to get their attention. But have I not told you, that you reap what you sow? Have I not told you clearly that your thoughts, words, actions create your future circumstances? So what do you want to sow to reap after you have given your coat and cloak to the stranger? Do you want your gifts restored to you, or do you want to be without coat and cloak for a long, long time? Because that is what will happen to you if you go on your way, angry and upset because you gave away your coat and cloak. Your words and actions will seal, make it hard like rock, the poverty you have brought upon yourself by giving away your coat and cloak. The people were no longer smiling and laughing. They were very quiet and listening intently. Remember, first do to others what you would have them do to you. Then there will be peace and contentment in your minds and hearts, and the Father will be able to do its love work within your bodies, minds, and hearts. Give and give abundantly, and rejoice that you have gifts to give to those in need. Because as you give, so will your gifts be restored to you in the way that you most need them. Give with happy hearts. Give in the faith and knowledge that where there is lack in your lives, so will the Father do its love work abundantly in you and for you. Do nothing with heavy hearts, because a heavy heart is what you will continue to have. Give everything with joyous spirit, that everything in your life may bring to you only joy and spiritual insight. A man commented, "This is against man's nature. It is natural to be anxious about the future. Clothes are expensive. Food is not easy to come by. Life is a constant struggle." I answered him in a loud voice because he was only saying what I knew most of my listeners were thinking. But You do not know for sure that tomorrow you will be struggling to live. You do not know that tomorrow you won't have a splendid job or any other wonderful thing come your way. You do not know this, but you are making very sure for yourself that there will not be a marvelous job or some other wonderful opportunity in your life, because you are creating the circumstances of your tomorrows. He was angry. I am? How am I doing that? Have I not just told you? I turned to the people laughing. Tell me, how has this man up front in the red cloak created his tomorrows? The crowd was silent. Then a very young man, Mark, shouted to me. I know. He said he would be struggling to buy food and clothes. You have told us that what we think and talk about is what we will get. Exactly, I said. You are a very clever boy. You have understood. Take care that you do not create for yourself the things you do not want, and I will be happy for you to become my disciple when you are older and your parents will let you go. Some of the people laughed, but some did not. I could see that they did not believe a word I was saying. You will never enter the kingdom of heaven by being anxious. You are having a hard time today. Why moan about it? Will it make you feel better if you do go about complaining? Will your crying brighten your day? And if you are anxious about your tomorrows, you are making your tomorrows burdensome and weary, even before you get to them. Why do it? What good will it do for you? When did anxiety ever accomplish anything for you? You might as well try to make yourself taller by being anxious that you are short. No, do not dwell on the things you do not have. Dwell on the things which can be yours if you turn to the Father within you and ask in perfect faith, believing you will receive. And I tell you without fear of contradiction that you will receive. But you must ask properly, believing. You will receive nothing if you ask, but at the same time wonder whether you have been heard or whether the Father will feel like giving you what you want. This is the human way of giving, but not the way of the Father, which gives abundantly and fulfills your needs. The Father always pours its gifts out upon you, gifts of food in plenty, clothes, house, friends, providing you yourself have a clean heart and mind, and providing you constantly rely on the Father as your moment-by-moment support. If you pray and do not receive, do not for one moment think it is because there is no Father, or the Father does not listen to you. Rather, you must ask yourselves, what is it in you that is preventing Father love work being done in and for you? If you go to the altar to pray or offer a gift, and on the way there you remember that you have quarreled with someone, turn around and go to that person and make your peace with him. Then, when you approach the Father in prayer, you will have a clean and pure mind, and you will be heard by the Father, and the Father will be able to respond, giving you all you need in the peace and quietness of your being. If you still cannot believe that the Father cares for its creation, look about you at the radiant flowers in the fields. How beautiful they are. Consider the brilliant thought which has gone into their design, their beauty. Where will you find the colors that you see in their petals? With all his wisdom, Solomon himself was not able to have such beautiful clothes made for himself. See the way the flowers attract the bees, and the bees help to bring the next season's seeds, to make your world beautiful and to give you food. Why can you not believe and trust in the Father when the world around you is planned, designed, and cared for in such a wonderful way? But remember, these living plants and trees, unlike mankind, cannot complain about their lot and see themselves as hungry and naked, and so they do not undo the work the Father does in them. It is you, with your continual complaining and talking about what you lack, your aggression towards each other, your insistence on retribution, your criticism and slandering, which makes your lack, and your sickness consistent day after day. I have told you all these things to prepare you who are sick for healing. You cannot be healed unless you believe with all your hearts that healing will take place. Remember that sickness of the body arises from an illness within the mind, such as your bad temper, resentments, angers, hatreds. Father love is the source of all health. Therefore, all thoughts and feelings contrary to Father love bring sickness. Just as your evils and sickness begin in the mind, so does your good. Have as much care for your neighbor as you have for yourself. Bless your neighbor when you have an argument. Pray for him when he is harsh with you. Help him out in any way you can at all times, even if he turns his face from you, because then you are constructing good in your mind and thoughts, and good will be the harvest of your sowing. Not only this, you are bringing your mind into harmony and attunement with the Father within you, which is perfect love. Under these conditions, the Father can do its perfect love work in you. When I had finished speaking, the people brought their sick to me, and according to their faith were they healed. All right, that is actually the end of letter 2. I'm going to give you a brief summary of what to expect in letter 3. Jesus will describe more of his teachings and explain the events leading to his crucifixion and death. He describes in poignant detail his Last Supper with his disciples, when he found himself alone in spirit because his disciples, till the last, refused to believe he would be crucified. Repeatedly, he was misunderstood, and he realized again how little he had managed to teach anyone during his 3 years of missionary work. He was glad to be leaving. All right. So that's what we will talk about in letter 3. I think that the beginning where I have my summaries is pretty much the same. Continues life incidents, teachings, his awareness that his time on earth was to be cut short by crucifixion, the things he did to arouse the anger of the Jewish religious leaders, what really took place and what was said at the Last Supper, the disciples' attitudes, and the truth concerning his ascension. Okay, so that's what we are going to cover in letter 3. Thank you all so much for joining me. I love you all so much. And until I see you again, take care of yourself, take care of those around you, and I will see you for the beginning of letter 3. Take care until then. Bye-bye.